What would you do if somebody comes to you knowing that you're a witch hunter and says that their member has been bewitched? You'd investigate, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? Hello and welcome to the Friday Fantasy Show from the Bottled Imp, exploring the realms of fantasy. My name is Ken Boyter and today we're going to take a look at Wolf's Blood by E.L. Johnson. Now this is published in 2019, so this year, by Azure Spider Publications, and I do have to declare an interest. I do know the writer, yes, so hello if you are watching. She goes to my writers group that I've been a member of for years and years and years and years, and obviously I'm very, very happy of the success, as in, getting a debut novel published, because obviously if anybody that's writing novels themselves, they know trying to get it actually published by a publisher can be pretty tricky. So I'm very, very happy for her. I wanted to declare the interest because obviously if you're reviewing something you want to be as objective as possible, and obviously if you know the author, if you know the board game designer or the filmmaker, whatever, then does that have an influence? Well, I'm here to say no, it's not going to have an influence because that wouldn't be fair to you, fellow imps. So, just what did I think of the debut novel, Wolf's Blood? Wolf's Blood, just what is the novel all about? Well, it is the first in the Witch Hunter series, but it does say on the back of the book that these books can be read as standalone novels, so they're obviously novels and stories within themselves, so you can read them in any order, or they can be read sequentially. That's a big word, isn't it? Sequentially to form maybe a bit more of an overarching story. Now, as this is the first one, and I don't believe there's any more that's been published so far, then I don't quite know how the overarching story may work. Presumably it's to do with the main protagonist's character development over a number of books, but it does say they are standalone as well. So what just is the setup for this first book? Well, it's set in 1339, very much in this world. In fact, it's set in the Shire, Hertfordshire. It's set in the county Shire of Hertfordshire. I don't know, and that's where I live. You would have thought I know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so it's real life. It's not a parallel universe. It's not a, Earth before, Jesus Christ or anything like that. It's actually meant to be real life. So it's sort of medieval fantasy. And the main protagonist is, as we already know, the witch hunter. But what is his name? His name is Harold Eastman, and he is hired by the church to seek out practitioners of the devil. Now, the devil obviously can take many forms and can have many disciples, of which witches are supposed to be those. Now, early one morning, Harold's sleep is interrupted by a village boy, Simon, who insists that he has been bewitched. But not just ordinarily bewitched, whatever that may be, but precisely that his genitalia has been bewitched. Yes, his downstairs bits. Apparently, they've disappeared. They've gone. They've been bewitched off. Obviously, that's not going to be very nice, and you'd want some help with that. So, being the witch hunter, Simon goes to the witch hunter to see if he can help. Obviously, it's a case that's going to be curious. Now, you're going to want to investigate that. I'm assuming being a witch hunter, you'd investigate all witches. But this one in particular has a very good hook that draws you in. You want to know why. Why would a witch do that? And so Harold says, yes, I'm going to help you out. Let's go back to your village. But also there is brother Thomas that comes along. He is from the Abbey. And they set off to investigate in a village in Hertfordshire. There are several themes that do run throughout the book, so I don't really like to give spoilers, so I don't like to talk too much about the plot. I like to set it up, but then talk about the themes, so the underlying themes that are explored within the book. So, the first one is obviously witchcraft. It's very obvious, because it's the Witch Hunter series. And that is the central theme, as you can imagine. It explores the conventions of witchcraft and witches. It does also take a look at the nature of what witchcraft actually is. So it is coming from a more realistic, researched Oh, bless you. Julian, he's been bewitched. He's sneezing his head off over there.
Hay fever season.
Hay fever season.
Expect more of that.
It's not. It's a witch. It's a witch. Yes. So it's more a realistic look of what actually happened in England in the medieval period, as opposed to anything that's too fantastical. It's not, witches riding around on broomsticks and all that kind of thing. And so it is more of a realistic look. And it does ask the question, does witchcraft really exist? Was there really some sort of magic that could be used? Maybe energy, some sort of, realistic energy that could be used? Or was it just hocus pocus, so to speak? Was it just made up? Was it a form of control? Was it a form of persecution? Because obviously the church did, persevere and prosecute, which is maybe a polite way of saying it, but burning witches, was it just a way of spreading fear in communities to say that the church is the only saviours? So obviously go to church, be a good person. Was it used just as a form of control? So Johnson does look a very good way of actually exploring the realities of witchcraft as well. Now, it also, witchcraft could also be used on the other side. So as well as the church trying to control people to be good, how about people that are up to no good, that are maybe what some people might call evil, to sort of hide their misdoings, use it as an excuse. So they're not actually practicing witchcraft. They may be doing some other naughty things that they're using witchcraft to kind of mask crimes so that it muddies the water so that they can get away with kind of more conventional crimes, I guess, such as murder or theft or, whatever, but it's a good way to say, oh no, it's witchcraft. Something, if you set stuff up, if you divert people's attention away from real crimes, then obviously, witchcraft could be used for that. Which all of that does lead on to truth and lies. So the plot is a mystery. So it's a nice mystery, and it's a great hook actually, a missing member. Quite unusual. Now, I don't know, I've done a little bit of research into witchcraft, but I don't know if that was a common thing in the medieval period in England or not. But it certainly is, quite a unique sort of hook for a plot line. So it has, so there you go. It's got a mystery straight away. And there are various events that happen that Harold investigates that it just applies mystery upon mystery upon mystery. Certain events happen and it sort of builds, each mystery kind of builds upon the last. Part of the mystery, obviously, are the characters that are wrapped up in the mystery. Are they telling the truth or are they telling lies? If it's a murder mystery, for example, a more traditional kind of murder mystery, then you're going to get suspects, aren't you? You're going to get players within the plot who are involved in the mystery or not involved in the mystery. They might be telling the truth, they might be lying, but they might be lying to cover other things up, not necessarily to anything to do with the actual case. So if they are lies, as I say, are they actually to do with the mystery? Or are they to do with their own personal issues and really red herrings? So that begs the question, if you're a witch hunter or anybody that's, if you're a police officer or anything that's, I guess, some sort of authority figure, the question is, how do you know if somebody is lying? Some people can be very good practice liars. How do you know if they're telling the truth? And if you don't know somebody, you don't know their reputation, you don't know, supposedly when people lie, they've got tells. So when some people lie, they might, sort of wipe their mouth, so they tell a lie, but they do that out of habit. Sometimes people's eyes twitch. But if you don't know that person, if you're a witch hunter and you've gone to a village that you don't know, you're starting from scratch, aren't you? You're trying to build up a picture of what these people are like. Now, of course, you're going to get other people who are trying to divert you, so they might spread rumours about other people, hence lies, just to put you off the track. So you've got, it's not only have you got to find the mystery and what's actually happened, but you've got to work out if people are lying because it's to do with a mystery, or are they lying because they're covering something else up that as a witch hunter you might not have any problem with as such. That's not your jurisdiction. So if they're stealing something, I guess, yes, maybe you ought to report that, but you haven't any jurisdiction to kind of, to arrest them because you're not a police officer, you're a witch hunter. If you find evidence that they're a witch, then yes, that's where your jurisdiction comes in. So the Harold does spend a lot of time checking out the village, talking to villagers, talking to people that are involved, and spending time. So there's a lot of observing that goes on with, if you're trying to observe truth and lies. There is also the theme of outsider versus the close-knit community. And that's a very interesting topic because I would imagine everybody, at least once in their life, has felt like an outsider. If you've switched schools, for example, you've come from a different school, you're coming into a new school, everybody knows each other. You don't. You're the outsider. Are you different? Are you weird? Are you unusual? It's the same when you join, you switch jobs. You're coming into a situation where people may have worked with each other for years, so they know each other. They've got a rapport going. You haven't. So likewise, the witch hunter is an outsider to the villages that he encounters, and the villagers are going to be all close-knit. They might not like each other, they might be bickering, there will be some that like each other, but nevertheless, they know each other much better. And I think it's that flight or fight scenario that do you feel threatened by an outsider? And I guess that leads on to immigration and that whole topic about immigration, which is obviously very current. I think it's probably been current in all times and all ages throughout history, about people coming into your village and disrupting it. And that sort of tags into the theme of change, because obviously if somebody's coming in and they start voicing opinions that might be different to your traditions, the way that your village has always done something, then you're going to feel threatened. And that's mainly because of change, because maybe you love the way that your village is being run. So there's these secrets that are going to be discovered as well. So people might be fearful of an outsider, not because of change, but maybe because they start digging around, aren't they, into your business. And if you're up to no good, you don't want that. You don't want secrets coming out. So being an outsider is presumably quite a lonely situation, especially if that is how your job has to be. If you're investigating witches, you can't just stay in one area. You have to go around investigating lots of areas where there's witches being reported. Overall, I did enjoy the novel. I felt that it flowed very well. There was a few drawbacks, but I will go through the positives. And for me, there were more positives than there were negatives. The main protagonist, the witch hunter Harold Eastman, is an interesting character and an intriguing character. He has sort of like an earthy intelligence. He's not necessarily book smart, but he's got worldwide experience. He's somebody that's been on the road, he's mixed with people, he kind of knows the way that people work and the way they think. So he brings that obviously to the investigation. There are several flashbacks in the book that you kind of get an inkling of why he's become this witch hunter, which I think is very important because you need to connect to a protagonist. You need to, you need to care for them, and you certainly do that. He is also the reader's way in to the story. So if there's a mystery, he is in the dark just as much as the reader. So he is your eyes and your ears as the mystery unfolds, because I guess in a way it's like Sherlock Holmes. You need to be on board with Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson because the events and the people are unfolding in front of them, i.e. they're unfolding as in front of you. So you need to really connect and really bond with the protagonist, which I did. It did actually remind me of Cadfael, which is a medieval, I guess they're murder mysteries. Cadfael was a character who was a monk, who was a herbalist as well. He knew about potions and herbs and that kind of thing and healing, and he would investigate mysteries. And also The Name of the Rose. Now, The Name of the Rose is quite complex. It's a bit more dense than this novel, but it had that feeling. It's set in the medieval times. It's a mystery. So it has supernatural elements thrown in there as well. So although the fantasy side of this wasn't out and out, it's not high fantasy, it's not epic fantasy, they're not going on a huge quest or anything like that, there's not dragons flying in, there's not massive battles. There is fantasy in it in the form of supernatural, and it's low-level fantasy, but it draws you in because of the reality of the situation, because they're going in and they're investigating real lives. And if you're accused of being a witch, that's no laughing matter, because you could potentially be burnt at the stake. You could die. And people just might hold grudges against you and accuse you of being a witch. And obviously, back in the day, well, and even now, I guess sometimes, there doesn't have to be, flimsy evidence. There could be corrupt judges. There could be corrupt jury people. And especially if it's a village passing judgment, then of course, that could just be a corruptness within the village. So in order for you to really enjoy the book, you have to understand the context of it. You don't have to know too much about medieval history or witchcraft, because it is nicely explained throughout the book. The supporting characters are colourful and they do play their parts well to keep the mystery and the story moving along. There's lots of twists and turns that happen within the book, so that's good. And also there was the big twist. There is like a big twist at the end. I don't want to spoil it, obviously. And I genuinely didn't see that coming. It was a really good plot twist that I went, oh, okay, yeah, nice. That's very satisfying. So it does keep you wanting to turn the page, which I think in this type of book, that's quite crucial. It reminded me in some respects of the Da Vinci Code from the point of view, it's better written than the Da Vinci Code, if I'm honest. But the hook with the Da Vinci Code is a mystery, and you want to know what the answer is, what the solution is, what the problem is here. You want to know, and it's a page turner. And it's the same with this book. There's enough in there to keep you turning that page. So the pacing is good. Just when, and there's a good balance between action and talky bits, and actually, because you need that. You can't just have action, because that gets boring. So there's a good balance between characterization and learning more about the characters, learning more about Harold Eastman, the witch hunter, and also the twists and turns of the plot where the action comes in. But as I say, it's not without its flaws. I would say the first 40 pages probably needed a little bit more work on it, because there was some jumpy, uppy, downy bits. I can't really describe it more than that. I've said this before with book reviews. For some reason, it's almost like the first 40 pages in books, so it's kind of like the author's finding their feet, and then it starts to smooth out, and and the author gets into a rhythm of writing. And I feel that happened here. It didn't put me off, but it just kind of slowed things down for me, and then it's sort of, it's almost like driving along a bumpy road where you're like going, yeah, okay, this is still okay, this is still fine, but I wish it would just smooth out a bit, and then it happens. And when that kicks in, it's like, yeah, okay, I'm in safe pair of hands here. I know that this author can actually tell a story and has good, interesting characters. There was a few bits as well, though, and it settled down. It wasn't too much past 40, 50 pages, but there was the odd one further down the line, but some of the dialogue and phrases I felt were just slightly jarring from the world that she created or that she's trying to represent. I felt some of them were a little bit modern, a little bit jarring, so I just thought, obviously I don't really know how dialogue was back in the medieval ages, so it's obviously we wouldn't understand it when you look back at medieval texts. It's all spelling's different, so I get that, but there's just kind of a few modernisms that I just felt that for me slightly jars and then slightly breaks me out of the story. But as I say, it settles down, and there's only one or two that then pop up again a little bit later in the book. One thing that was slightly confusing, this is more of a plot issue, that Simon was referred to as a boy right at the beginning. For loads of pages, it's always the boy Simon, he's lost his member, he's been bewitched. But then it turns out he's actually sort of about 20, 21, or something like that. He's not a boy. In my view, a boy would be somebody who's obviously, or not a baby, but past toddler stage, but maybe 6 to sort of 10, 11, and then you kind of get into your teenage years, and then you get into adulthood. So it was slightly confusing, because I was thinking this boy was actually quite mature, and I was thinking, some of his actions was like that, and what he was saying and his ideas, and I was thinking, a boy wouldn't really be coming up with this. And then it was only when it was revealed that actually he's in his 20s, or I think it was 21, 20. It was like, oh, okay, right, that makes a bit more sense now. I think the reason why the author did this was from Harold Eastman's point of view, because Harold Eastman's, there's never really any age specified, but I kind of imagined him to be in his 30s or early 40s, somebody who's wise, you know, who has wisdom of experience of life. It gave me that impression, so I put the age of that. That's why I thought, okay, he's going to call people younger than him boy. So, you know, it's just an expression. So, you know, what do you mean disturbing me at this time in the morning, boy? It's almost like an expression and a put down, you know, rather than an actual physical observation. So that was a little bit confusing. It kind of threw me a little bit, but then once I realised, I thought, oh, okay, that's sorted out. So I did find the characters, some of the character motivations was a little bit weak towards the end. Just some, not all of them. It didn't spoil the book. But I just felt, would that character have done that? There was one character that I felt had a sudden change of character that I don't think was foreshadowed enough. And it sort of kept hidden, when maybe revealing it a bit earlier on would have foreshadowed it, and then the sudden change wouldn't have happened. One thing that springs to mind, but I won't spoil it, is in Game of Thrones series, the last series, that happened to one of the characters as well. I don't really want to go into that because obviously I don't want to spoil that, and it just reminded me of that. It's like, oh, okay, that character's now doing that. I didn't see that coming. I could sort of understand it, but I didn't see that coming. And I don't know whether that was because the author wanted it as a plot twist and as a like, oh, an oh wow moment. But for me, it didn't quite work. But that said, there were, as I say, just a few flaws in there that I sort of kind of didn't sit happy with me. But I did enjoy the book and the characters and the world that she's created, and the story definitely kept me turning the pages. I wanted to know more. There are some graphic scenes in this, you know, certainly towards the end. There's some, you know, so if you're looking for kind of more out and out witch hunting, gore and all of that, there are some graphic scenes in there. But on the whole, the author is trying to set up a world and does a good job of creating more of a realistic medieval supernatural encounter and story, rather than pushing it and exaggerating it and kind of being more on the extreme, you know, I don't know, exploitation side of witchcraft. So there are things that are very familiar in there, but she does enough to kind of twist it and to kind of create something that's new and interesting. It does stand out. So for a debut novel, I think she did a really, really solid job, so I definitely do recommend it. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you found that enjoyable. I did want to spread the word of this, because if you find a novel that you love, you know, and that you really kind of think is worth other people reading, then obviously you want to recommend it. Now, if you've got a big novel, you know, that have got marketing behind them and they're a big publishing company that are doing it, then obviously they've got an advantage. If you've got a small publication house like Azure Spider is, they're relatively small, they may not have as much money in the marketing to get word out. And obviously, if you find a novel, this is why I like reviewing self-published small publications as well as the big, you know, boys and girls that are out there, you know, like the Mark Lawrence or, you know, Tolkien. You know, I've not done J.K. Rowling yet, but, you know, it's good to do a mixture, isn't it? And also, I think as a reader, you benefit from reading as many different authors and new as well as old authors as well. So that's why I like to mix it up a bit. So, and obviously from this point of view, I do know Erin very well. I know the author. So you know, I was a bit nervous reading it, if I'm totally honest, because I thought, oh, what if I don't like it? What if I do really don't like it? What am I going to do? It's going to be slightly awkward. Well, just to let you know, a little bit behind the scenes. When I have done that, I've had people send me novels, you know, sometimes they've been self-published, sometimes they've been small publications, and I've not felt, you know, if they're so terrible, then I've just emailed them back constructive criticism with why I feel this book isn't for us to review, because what's the point of reviewing something and slating it, especially if it's a self-published novel, because it's not really going to do them any favours, is it? Whereas if it's a bigger, you know, like somebody from Bloomsbury gets published, they've got marketing behind them. So what I say isn't really going to affect sales. But if it's a small publication and you might never have heard of this book, But if I slated it, then you're not going to buy it, are you? Now, it's up to you if you buy it or not. I'm not advocating one way or the other, but I do recommend it. Luckily, there was enough in there for me to go, yeah, I like that. And what happened was during the day, when I was just going about my normal business, 'cause I normally read at night, I started thinking of the story. I actually started wondering, okay, so maybe that character's actually telling a lie, and maybe they're that. And also, you want to know who the witch is. So I was trying to work out which one was the witch, which I didn't. So did a very good job there in tricking me. I'm normally quite good at that sort of stuff. So that's why I, want to do these small publications and debut novels, because it's important. It's important to have new voices in any genre, let alone fantasy. So there you go. So hopefully that was very, very helpful to you. Just remember, we have now got over 440 episodes, yes, fellow imps, on our YouTube channel. So check those out. We've conveniently grouped them into playlists. So if you're just into board games, you can fill your boots, if that's an expression, to do with board games. It's not, but anyway. And you can just binge watch that playlist. If you're into writing, we've done a how to write fantasy, just my experiences when I wrote my book, The Legends of Grimm's Ironblood. If you're into film reviews, we've done a little playlist for that. We've also started doing it, we've got a Terry Pratchett Discworld series playlist, because I've started reading all of those, so they'll be building every time I review one of those. So if you're into fantasy, this is the channel. And if your mates are into fantasy, spread the word. And also, remember to subscribe, because then you won't miss an episode. Click the little bell and you'll know exactly when each episode gets posted. Until next time, remember to keep it unreal, especially if you're a witch.